Welcome back to the Short Coat Podcast, a production of the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. I'm Dave Etler. Here with me in the studio, it's new co-host M1 Jacob Hansen.
Hello.
Hi there, M4 Abby Fife.
Hi.
Sup, M4 Maddie Walleen.
Not quite. M3.
Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass me, Maddie. Just say, hey. Just
hey,
pretend.
guys.
No, thank you for correcting me. And joining us from the internet, it's M4 Emma Barr.
Hello.
I want to start off by saying thank you to Trisha from South Carolina, who posted on Instagram saying that she enjoys listening to us during her commute to school. Thanks, Trisha. I've dropped a token of our thanks in the email, and I'm so happy you like the show. If you want to do the same, listeners, just post your thoughts on the show or about an episode or whatever we talked about and tag the Short Coat. I'll send you something to help us spread the word. I can't afford to advertise or do anything crazy like that. So you'd be helping me out. You'd be doing me a solid. I'll do you a solid. Jacob.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
You're, as I said, you're co-hosting for the first time, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right.
When did you first realize you wanted to be a doctor?
Yeah, so I've wanted to be a doctor ever since I saw a dermatologist for the first time. I was in first grade. I was plagued with these warts all over my face and my arms. And prior to this, I only thought that like doctors just gave me shots and made me feel bad. But,
Which is true.
Which, you know, they still did. But this time it was different because I realized that not only are they like treating like these physical diseases, but they're also able to help me emotionally and socially and mentally as well. And so I really appreciated that. And that's something that I wanted to do, is make these kind of really large, like global differences in the lives of my like patients and communities.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What didn't you know about medical school before you got here? And how did you figure it out?
Yeah. One thing I didn't realize is that unlike an undergrad, medical school is very variable. Like every day will look very different. And I first realized this when I downloaded my class schedule, and it was like 20 some pages long. And I'm like, oh, I have to actually like be on top of this.
What's awesome about that, and this is my old man moment.
Yeah. We
used to give those syllabi on paper, and they came in 3-inch binders.
Oh my goodness.
Which I was always shocked at. I'm like, that's what you're calling the syllabus. All right. How did your first semester go?
Yeah, my first semester was about like what I'd expect it to be. Definitely challenging, but also very interesting and very fun. One thing that I really liked about it is because people haven't seen each other in person a whole lot recently, but just like the atmosphere here at Carver is very inviting. Everyone's so friendly here, and just making these new great friends that come from all different walks of life has been definitely a highlight for me this last semester.
That's great. I'm glad to hear. It sounds like you've found your people.
I would say so, yeah.
Which can be difficult sometimes, especially when we're doing weird things like having remote classes and things like that. But
yeah,
good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad you've joined us for the show. We got a listener question from Riley.
Hi, good morning, Short Coats. My name is Riley Johnson. I'm recently graduated in April. I'm a biochemist. Had an unconventional way of getting through school. Actually dropped out in the 10th grade of high school, first month in there. Didn't have much of an education. Picked up a trade. I actually loved FFA and took up welding. Run my own welding contracting company, and it's got me through. I'm applying this next cycle, and I'm seated to take the MCAT April 9th. It's a fun trip, and I'm just looking for wisdom on a notch going in. I ended up finishing an undergrad with like 3.0 GPA, all the cool stuff. Upward trend right in the start, and then the world shut down, and, well, that is reflected on my transcript. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the world, but I want to get some wisdom for, hey, just as a young adult going through the gap year. Obviously, we have the simple things like get shadowing experience, get clinical experience wherever you can, but what were some of the things that helped you guys grow as student doctors in this time period that were high yield to you guys? And what advice would you have for some crazy cuss who looks bad on paper without doing a post-bac or anything like that to try to get on into medical school? I'm just calling, actually shaking hands, which is frowned upon these days. So thank you for running the show. You guys have a great show. Bye.
Thank you, Riley. So Riley has a common story. His GPA is imperfect. His trajectory didn't exactly improve in the time of COVID. And so we get this question a lot from listeners on the show. who are concerned about whether or not they'll be able to get in. But interestingly, that's not what he actually asked. His question isn't so much the usual, can I still get in, or how do I fix it, or anything like that. It's more, the question he asks is more, how can I grow at this moment in time? And I just really like how you put that. What can I do to grow? It sort of shows a mindset that I think is admirable, number one, and also one that will resonate with anyone down the road looking at your application. So good on you for putting it that way and sort of having that in your mind as what you want to do. You want to grow. So you mentioned shadowing. It's the obvious thing people do. And remember that shadowing, my personal feeling on this is, remember that shadowing isn't just with physicians, but it can be with any healthcare provider. It probably should be with any healthcare provider, because it helps you answer the question you're going to get, which is, why do you want to be an MD instead of X, Y, or Z? So keep that in mind. Now let's deal with the actual question. What are some things that you guys did that helped you grow?
I think some of the things that have actually helped me in a really surprising way to grow as a almost physician is actually stuff like completely unrelated to medicine, but I found like engaging in like humanities activities and things to be really helpful. And like actually is one of my bigger regrets is, if I could go back and be an undergrad again, I would not like choose a science major. I would have majored in like sociology or psychology or maybe even English, and then just done my prereqs. On
the theory that you're going to get all that. You're going to get all that other stuff.
Yeah. On the theory that, yeah. And also like, I did not enjoy like physical chemistry and some of the like really niche chemistry stuff I took as a biochem major. And the knowledge that you are going to get, if you get your required prereqs, you are going to get all the science information your heart desires and needs. And like, you're going to have that education. But I, especially in med school, I've just found sociology and like, why are humans behaving the way they're behaving to be so interesting and also incredibly important, because I think so much of what we deal with in medicine is health conditions that are either caused by a behavior or require a change of behavior in order to treat. And if you're going to effectively treat either of those two groups of conditions, which is like a huge amount of things you're going to be treating, like you're going to have to know how to help patients change their behavior.
What's the number? Like 2/3 of illness is mediated by societal factors and personal behaviors and things like that.
And even if the illness itself is purely like biologically driven, it's most likely still going to require some form of a behavior change to treat. And like that behavior might be just as small as like, now you have to take a pill every night. But for some patients, that's a hard change to make. Yeah. And I just think like engaging in some of the more like the softer sciences, if you will, or whatever you want to call them, I think I would have appreciated that as a human, but I do also think it would have been useful to my medical career. And so that is my advice to Riley, is to pursue something in that realm.
What about you, Maddie?
Yeah, I really agree. I think that med schools are looking for well-rounded applicants and people who, you know, there's a lot of people in medicine, most people in medicine, I would say, have like really strong science backgrounds. And that doesn't do a lot for breeding diversity and getting a lot of new ideas. And like, when you have a bunch of people who come from a similar background, I feel like that's just not where new things thrive. And I think med schools now are looking to invite a lot more people with different experiences into their programs. So I think you already have that going for you as somebody who was in a trade and who has a non-traditional coming to medicine. So I think that's already something that is, you know, in your favor. But I totally agree with Abby that in the meantime, I didn't do a gap year, but if I would have had a gap year, I think I would have wanted to do something that was like more a passion of mine. I always like, oh, I should have been an EMT or something, but I don't know that would have necessarily made me a better doctor. I think getting involved in some volunteering that I'm really passionate about. Since I've been in medical school, I started volunteering with the Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition, and I would have loved to give more time to something like that. And I feel like med schools require, they have a hunger for people who show that they're committed to something, whether that be in medicine or something else. So I think just anything that you are passionate about and can stick to for your gap year, I think that's going to be really valuable to med schools.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts, Jacob?
Yeah, I wanted to echo a lot of what has already been said on the idea of growth. One thing that I've done a lot of thinking about this last semester was the idea that when people ask what I do, I typically say I'm a student because that's what I am, but that's not all that I am. And so one thing that I've really come to think about this last couple of months is that I'm also a human being too. And so while I might spend, most of my days being a student, these hard sciences type of things, that's not all of who I am. And so one thing that I realized, especially during these more challenging COVID times, is going back to what I enjoy doing, kind of has what already been said. So one thing that I discovered right at the beginning of undergrad that I was neglecting pretty bad was my more artsy or my more right side of my brain. Got more in touch with I big into photography. So that's what I did. And then when things were changing due to the pandemic and stuff, I tried to combine a way to use that my interest and my passions in a more constructive way, in to show that I'm not just standing stagnant. I'm trying to always better myself and try to look at the world in a new way or try to solve problems in a new way. So for example, I was making these thank you videos with different organizations, thanking the healthcare workers, thanking the essential workers, things like that. So just trying to figure out what you enjoy and how you can also tie that into these other problems that you'll be facing down the road, I think was something that really helped me out, not just become a more well-rounded individual, but it's something that I enjoyed and it's something that I looked forward to help break up the monotony of what we do day in and day out.
And then it's something you can talk about too. When you put it on your application, I think it's really important to be able to convey to whoever's interviewing you that you actually cared about something. And that's a lot easier to do when you're doing something that you enjoy. It's just a lot easier to come up with things to say about it versus what did you enjoy so much about shadowing? Well, I shadowed because I was expected to shadow,
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead, Emma.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said. I think interacting more with the humanities and your hobbies is super important. But practically, I took 2 gap years. Practically, you have to make money and you have to pay rent. And so those things may be harder to make money off of if you only have 1 or 2 years. So what I did was I worked in several different healthcare settings. I'd worked as a CNA during college, and then I worked as a scribe. And then when they got rid of the scribes, I worked at a front desk of a medical clinic. And I think those experiences also really made me grow because it made me see different aspects of healthcare. And I have so much respect for CNAs now. They do such hard work, and people sitting at a front desk at an office. You wouldn't imagine how angry sometimes patients come into the clinic. And then as a scribe, you can see different styles of practice, and you may really value this one provider's professionalism and this one other provider's compassion. And so you can pick up things that you may want to incorporate into your own practice. So I think getting healthcare experience is also helpful, especially if you can get different aspects and see different viewpoints and seeing what your team members are going through every day.
I posed this question to Megan, one of our admissions folks, and she said, I think some of what you guys are saying, but she also said, try to find an activity that takes you out of your comfort zone. Because that's where you're going to do that's when you're going to really grow. She didn't really provide any specifics other than immersive experiences like going abroad. A little difficult right now.
Yeah.
As poor Abby can attest. But you did do, for people who, maybe this idea is a few years out, it's also worth talking about because Abby, you've done it. Abby, you've been abroad.
I have. Yes.
During your medical school career and before or no?
I mean, not for as long, just kind of
Sure.
went abroad a lot.
Okay, so you traveled.
I traveled a lot, but I did a global...
I mean, travel is a mind-broadening experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a global health experience after my M1 year in Jerusalem, working in a Palestinian NICU, which we could talk about for ages.
We've talked about it on the show before.
We have indeed.
In the distant past, but I'll try to remember to link to that in the show notes.
And I was supposed to be in Jerusalem at the current moment, but COVID ruins all good plans. Nothing is safe from COVID these days, we have found. And so Israel closed their borders, and so I couldn't get to where I wanted to be. And then just last week, they reopened them all of a sudden randomly, but it was too late to resurrect my plans. So I'm here.
Personally, how did you grow?
Personally, how did I grow? Wow, that's a big question.
Sure.
Yeah, Dave is a big question asker. I think it's hard to say it in just a few sentences, so I'm going to do my best here. But I think one of the areas I grew is just I really learned a lot about what it is like to be an outsider in a situation. I'm used to being around people who look like me and who have had very similar experiences to me, but going to somewhere where I'm working with people who are all, I think like probably 90 to 95% of the people I was working with were Muslim. So like females were all like dressing very differently than me, covering their hair, and like different color skin, different cultural attributes. It was still just like very eye-opening, and that is something that I grew a lot from.
I think one of Megan's suggestions was in particular volunteering with different populations than the one that you belong to. Yeah. Whether it's underserved and underrepresented populations can bring you a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, I was just going to say I also did a global health with quotes summer after my first year, and I spent it in Eastern Washington State. And the community that I was in was like 99% Latino and 98% like only Spanish speaking. And so even though I was in the US near an area where I grew up, I still felt, I think, maybe similar to what Abby felt.
Yeah, absolutely a good point that you don't have to necessarily, especially COVID, it's not super possible to travel far. But it is possible to go places that are close to you where you will have that experience of.
Look around you. There are opportunities. If you're a man, volunteer at the Emma Goldman Clinic in your city if there is one. Volunteer with a harm reduction organization like Maddie did. These are opportunities to see things differently than you see them now. And don't be too precious about your values either. Just do it. Keep an open mind when you're interacting with people, and maybe your perception will broaden a little bit. I'd love to hear more about Riley's journey.
Yeah.
Like, I'm having trouble envisioning the trajectory between dropping out of 10th grade, welding business, college, and grad school. He did say grad school? No, he said undergrad.
Just undergrad.
I guess it's not that unusual, but I love hearing stories of people who I especially like hearing about people who went to trade school or did a trade, especially because part of me thinks that I should not have gone to college because I was not very good at it. Maybe if I had done what Riley did and been like, okay, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do a trade for a while. And then I went to college, that would have been better. But yeah, no, I wasn't very good at it. Or rather I was better at some things that college isn't supposed to be about.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think our culture pushes high school to college a lot, but I think that a lot of people may benefit from taking some time to figure out what they want to do before seeking that higher education.
Well, that may be a current trend that's going on right now. I was, I was reading an article about the decline in people going to college.
Yeah.
And out of curiosity, I, went to Google Trends and entered college and trade school to compare those searches, and they are exactly opposite. So the interesting search, the searching for colleges has gone down, and the searching for trade schools has gone up. And I wonder how that's going to play out in the long term. Yeah. Colleges are, of course, very panicky about it.
Yeah, my brother just recently finished his electrician program, so he's working as an electrician out in Idaho right now, and he loves it.
Yeah. Awesome. And we mentioned it's totally okay to delay going to college, but it's also okay to just go to trade school. There's nothing magical about it.
Yeah, there's this narrative though that you'll make more money if you go to college, or you'll have more upward mobility if you go to college. Okay, I'm sure the data supports that, but ain't nothing wrong with I
don't
have
know
called,
if the data does support that. I think you can make a lot of money in the trades, like as a plumber or
Yeah.
And
And I
especially
mean,
to the, oh, I'm sorry.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, especially like that point, I don't remember the exact number, but there's a point where it's no matter how much more money you make above this threshold, like your happiness is the same. So
Yeah.
like, why spare yourself like the 4-ish, maybe more years and all the headache and stuff if you don't have to?
Yeah.
And don't get enough credit because like we glorify going to college and the jobs you get after college, but we just had to have a plumber come to I live in an old house I rent, and there was like sewage coming up out of the basement.
No.
I had this problem last week too.
Yeah, and I'm like, what would we have done without that plumber? Do you think I have any idea how to fix this problem? Because the answer is no. I am completely useless.
I feel like we should have learned some of these practical things in high school. Like these are things that all of us could find useful.
Yes,
And why
how
didn't
the
we learn it in
world
high school?
actually works would be great to know.
Spend time memorizing presidents and dates and historical things when we could have been learning how to take care of a toilet.
Yeah. And
It's totally true. Totally true. I've had at least 3 different trades in my house this past week for various reasons. And while it will prove to be expensive, I will have a home that I can live in, and I will be grateful for those people and their help.
what are the only 2 toilet papers that we're supposed to use?
No,
It's like
absolutely
Angel
not.
Soft and what's the other one?
Angel Soft and Scott.
Scott.
Those are the only 2 acceptable toilet papers my plumber
Endorsed.
endorsed and will recommend.
man, my family had to get Scott's.
I threw away all of the toilet paper in my house
wow.
after I had that guy come in,
Wow.
after I had that man come in to clear my drains.
Okay.
What's wrong with Kirkland? I am very passionate.
He says
about
it's
using
trash. Okay, so his
Kirkland. Well, it is toilet paper.
his tests indicate that it does not break up in your sewer line. So if it does get caught, it's going to be there essentially until you call him to get it out. And yeah, I'm a believer
All
at this
right.
point.
Okay, but during the initial
Not a sponsor.
pandemic, when there was no toilet paper available, my family had to get Scott's instead. We're a Continental family.
Oh, that's the worst one.
I know, and Scott's toilet paper. My mom is still traumatized by this Scott's toilet paper. I'm still traumatized by how terrible this toilet
It's
paper
not exactly,
is.
yeah.
It's not a comfortable experience.
Angel Soft.
I could go for Angel Soft probably.
Call me Angel
Okay.
Soft. Great sponsor for the Short Code podcast.
Yes,
Would be
let's
Angel
get it. That's what we need more of is toilet paper sponsors.
Riley, good luck on your journey. I'd love to hear more about how things go and your continued success in this area. Best of luck.